Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church. I am Nancy Melito, your worship associate today. My pronouns are she, hers, and I am happy to be here on this very hot day, and thank you all for coming out and for being online. Today, we are very fortunate to have a wonderful guest minister. We have Reverend Karyn Bergmann Marsh. She is chaplain at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, and she is affiliated with Towson Unitarian Universalist Church. And in her previous lives, she has been both a geologist and an environmental lawyer. So please welcome Reverend Karyn. This congregation is a welcoming and inclusive community that seeks to create a more just and compassionate world. If you are new to Accotink and would like to talk more about this church, please be sure to reach out to me, our minister, Reverend William Levewood, or one of today's greeters. And whether you're a longtime member or a newcomer or something in between, we encourage you to stay for our social hour, online and in person, immediately after this service. We're so delighted that you decided to join us today. Welcome.
Well, hello and welcome. As you know, I'm the Reverend Karyn Marsh, and my pronouns are she, her, and they, them. I am, for those of you who are visually impaired, I am a short woman, cisgender woman, with gray hair and with a fair complexion, and I'm wearing a black dress with a green stole. As we begin our service, I invite you to silence your phone, put it into a good vibrations mode. And if you're online, I invite you to close other windows on your computer. And I invite us all, whether you're here in person or on Zoom, to take a deep breath in and center yourself for our worship. We open in welcome to the ancestral people of this land, acknowledging that this church, like all of Berg, rests on the unceded territory of the Manahoac tribe of the Great Sioux Nation. We seek healing and the realization of justice with the people of this land who live on in their descendants, the present-day members of the Monacan Indian Nation, the Potawatomi Indian tribe of Virginia, and the Piscataway Indian Nation. We honor the ancestors as we move toward healing so that all together shall one day know full justice. Our chalice lighting comes from the Reverend Paul Sprecher. We light this chalice in memory of the courage of those who have struggled for freedom, the persistence of those who've struggled for justice, and the love of those who've built beloved communities to carry on the light of hope.
This reading is an excerpt from Faith for the Free by James Luther Adams. Faith is by no means dead in the world. A devil's plenty of it is loose on the planet. A person bears beliefs, said Emerson, as a tree bears apples. A person bears beliefs about themselves, about their fellows, about their work and their play, about their past, about their future, about human destiny. What a person loves, what a person serves, what a person sacrifices for, what a person tolerates, what a person fights against, these signify their faith. They show what they place their confidence in. The question concerning faith is not, shall I be a person of faith? The proper question is rather, which faith is mine? Or better, which faith should be mine? The fact that every person must put trust in something is no basis for any particular faith. Rather, the necessity as well as the fact shows only that we humans must choose. We cannot hide behind someone else's authority or choice. Whenever we delegate a decision to someone else, we have made a decision. The decision is still our own, and the claim that humility dictates the decision does not make the decision any less our own. We cannot escape from freedom and its responsibilities. Just because we are compelled to make a decision and a choice, we are compelled to have faith in ourselves. The free person's faith is not merely a faith in oneself. It is a faith in the capacity of sincere persons to find freely together that which is worthy of confidence. The free person is not bound to accept a faith once delivered. In their view, consensus, not compulsion, free and open discussion, not docile obedience, should rule in matters of faith. The free person does not live by an unexamined faith. To do so is to worship an idol, whittled out and made into a fetish. The true can be separated from the false only through observation and rational discussion. The faith that cannot be discussed is a form of tyranny. An unexamined faith is not worth having, for it can be true only by accident. A faith worth having is a faith worth discussing and testing. To believe that a fence of taboo should be built around some formulation is to believe that a person can become God and speak for them. The faith of the free must be available to all, testable by all, and valid for all.
So recently, I read an article in either the New York Times or the Atlantic that spoke of the widening divide between liberals and conservatives in the United States. The article said that conservatives think that all liberals are communists and criminals. Well, this comment didn't shock me at all. Ever since the former Soviet Union fell in the late 1980s, it seems conservatives in the United States have been looking for a new arch enemy. And Newt Gingrich, Republican Speaker of the House in 1994, found the ideal arch enemy in the Democrats, namely those liberal and progressive Democrats. Unfortunately, his demand that all Republicans in the House refuse to socialize with their Democratic colleagues planted the seeds of the enmity we are witnessing today. And the identity of liberal has lost its historical meaning. Now, it is an insult, a curse, a four-letter word. To say that one is a liberal, at least among certain circles, is to say that person is evil. Liberal, like any label, is a judgment. But liberal has not always meant evil or criminal or communist. The word comes from Latin, the Latin word for libertas, which means freedom. It's actually the name of the goddess of freedom, libertas. And up until recently, the word liberal meant free thinking, which is kind of ironic given that conservatives these days are claiming that liberals want to suppress individual freedom, including free thought. Historically, liberalism was all about questioning the status quo. Back at the founding of the United States and the ratification of our current Constitution in 1787, which, by the way, was more than 60 years before Karl Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto, along with his colleague Friedrich Engels, many of the founders of the United States considered themselves to be liberal because they were men of the Enlightenment, which was a liberal philosophical movement of which the philosopher John Locke was one of the leaders. It was John Locke who posited the notion that governments derive their power from those who are governed, not from some supernatural being. It was Locke who said that government only remains legitimate as long as the governed consent to it. It was Locke who said that church and state must be separate and that every person has freedom of conscience, which must be protected from government action. It was on the basis of Locke's liberal philosophy that the United States was founded, not, as Christian nationalists today claim, it was not based upon Christianity. If Christianity played any part in the founding of American democracy, it was liberal Christianity, not the fundamentalist Christianity espoused by these nationalists today. To be clear, there was and still is a liberal Christianity. Now, when I say liberal Christianity, I'm referring to that modernizing movement within Christianity that began all the way back to the Protestant Reformation back in the 16th century. Liberal Christianity has emphasized, and still emphasizes, I might note, reason and experience over doctrinal or ecclesiastical authority. I note that your sign outside actually reads a liberal religious community. And that's because both Unitarianism and Universalism both came out of liberal Christianity. As Reverend Henry Whitney Bellows, a 19th century Unitarian minister and the founder of the newsletter, The Liberal Christian, said, "Unitarians are the Protestants of the Protestants." Both denominations were liberal because they dared to question the status quo of their times. They questioned the doctrines of Orthodox Christianity, especially when they did not square with reason or with the experience of the people or with the growing understanding of our physical world through science. For example, the Unitarians questioned the nature of Jesus and the triune God. And the Universalists questioned the concept of predestination, which was promoted by John Calvin. Both denominations chose to interpret the Bible differently from traditional or Orthodox Christianity, and thus they were branded heretics, which incidentally, that word comes from the Greek word meaning to choose. And as the author of the reading, the Reverend James Luther Adams, said, "We all have freedom of choice." Now, true, those in our society who have more status may have more choices, but we all have from birth the freedom to choose what to believe, what to think, and what to put our confidence in. Unitarians and Universalists were and continue to be heretics, free thinkers, in other words, liberals in the original sense of the term. Now, the Reverend James Luther Adams was an influential 20th century Unitarian minister who proudly bore the label of heretic and liberal. He was a faculty member of Harvard Divinity School, along with the liberal Christian theologian Paul Tillich in the 1950s. His essay, Of Faith for the Free, from which you heard an excerpt today, is one of the many essays and sermons on faith and freedom that he authored. Now, there's so much I can say about this seminal essay, which was written in 1946. Yet, even though it was written back then, it seems very relevant today. Its main point, though, is the importance of discourse in matters of faith. Faith, for Reverend Adams, is a very broad concept. Though many people associate faith with belief in a deity or deities, for that matter, faith encompasses much, much more. To Reverend Adams, faith is what a person places their confidence in. Faith is what a person places their confidence in. And God, or religion, is the thing that most deeply concerns a person. Like another Unitarian, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Reverend Adams notes that everyone has a faith. I have a faith. I bet all of you have a faith. In other words, we all have certain beliefs about ourselves, the world, our past, our future. In today's parlance, that might be called our personal truths. Yet Reverend Adams would not condone the acceptance of a personal truth without examination. To Adams, quote, "An unexamined faith is not worth having, for it can be true only by accident. A faith worth having is faith worth discussing and testing," unquote. Indeed, as you heard in the reading, quote, "The free person does not live by an unexamined faith. To do so is to worship an idol, whittled out and made into a fetish," unquote. That passage reminds me of guns rights activists today who seem to put their faith in guns and in dominating other people. For this reason, Reverend Adams emphasized the importance of religious community, or the free church, as he put it, in matters of faith. To Reverend Adams, quote, "The free person's faith is not merely a faith in oneself. It's a faith in the capacity of sincere persons to find freely together that which is worthy of confidence." In other words, people must sincerely work with each other in order to give reliable form and expression to faith. This is the only way freedom from tyranny can be fulfilled, unquote. In short, Reverend Adams is saying that a liberal faith community provides a reality check. It's a counterbalance to distortions that can result from an individual's isolation from what Reverend Adams calls a commanding and transforming reality. That individual isolation is so easily accomplished these days with social media, isn't it? Social media provides a strong temptation to retreat to our bubbles of alternate reality that are filled with alternate facts. Do I need to say that this division is an existential threat to not only democracy, but to peace, justice, and true freedom? As the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, who's the current president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, has said, "This is no time for a casual faith. This is no time to go it alone. That's why it's important, no, critical, that we join liberal religious communities such as this one. Joining with other liberals in a faith community can be that powerful counterbalance, not only to the centrifugal forces of individualism, but also to authoritarianism, whether it's wrapped in a flag or carrying a cross. Liberal, that is, free-thinking congregations provide a space to explore together what is worthy of our confidence and that commanding, transforming reality. It is in a liberal religious community that we can model self-government and a different way to relate to one another that isn't based on strict hierarchies. James Luther Adams spoke of this idea of the free church as a means of creating a community of justice and love. The same thing that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King spoke of when he called our community's beloved community. Now, in such a community, we will meet up with differences. But we shouldn't fear diversity. Diversity is not the opposite of unity. Really, the opposite of diversity is uniformity. Uniformity, that's the opposite of diversity, not unity. And speaking as a geologist, I would even say that the arc of life, of evolution, bends towards diversity, not uniformity. Not uniformity. Actually, uniformity is an abomination and the direct opposite to God, if you believe in God, God's will. I would say Gaia's will, but in any case. It's not only possible to have unity in diversity. Unity in diversity is our natural state. We are one planet, one organism, with a diversity of cells. The challenge in any community is how do we negotiate power in relationships among diverse and free people? Such negotiation of a power among individuals and groups for the purpose of making decisions, well, that's the textbook definition of politics. But like liberal, politics is not a four-letter word. We've been made to think of it as such by the toxic and negative rhetoric of our leaders over the decades. And that may be intentional. It may be intentional to discourage us, the people, where the power is, from engaging in the political process wherever we are, which includes not only voting, but also discussing matters that are of ultimate concern to us. That's critical in any political discussion. The truth is, all humans are social animals. And I use animals not in a pejorative sense. It's a fact. We're animals, and we're social animals. And that means whenever two or more persons are gathered, there's going to be politics. However, liberal congregations, or a free church, in the words of Reverend Adams, can be a place where we practice true democracy, where we model that unity in diversity. From there, we can show the world, the greater society, what real democracy looks like, and how we can live together in peace while respecting difference, which means learning listening and didactic skills. And a liberal church is a place where self-determination is welcome and critical thinking skills are encouraged. In a liberal congregation, people are allowed to define themselves. And you know, we can start right here, right now, by reclaiming the term liberal. And when people try to define you or me as a communist or a criminal, gently remind them that liberal is not a 4-letter word. It's actually 7 letters. And that the founders of this country, for all their flaws, were liberals, which is to say they were free thinkers, just like you. So, wear that badge of liberal proudly, because a free society can't exist without free-thinking people, liberals. So we're going to extinguish our flame. Though we will extinguish our chalice flame, we carry within us what we kindled, the light of inspiration, the warmth of compassion, the fire of commitment. May we bring these gifts into our lives and share them radiantly out in the world.
And I now invite you to join in our community blessing. If you would, as you are willing and able, please stand. And though we cannot take hands with each other, we can stretch out our hands to each other and recite together the words of David Bumbaugh that were written for the very foundation of this church. This church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all our differences and beneath all our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together in spite of time, death, and the space between the stars. We pause now in silent witness to that unity.
So I went to Starr King School for the ministry, and when I first entered the threshold, this song was sung to me. It was also sung to me at my graduation from Starr King. It's called Sweet Love. The words were composed, written by Mr. Maynard, I can't remember his first name, but the music was composed by one of our teachers at Starr King. So I'm going to sing our benediction today. Sweet love, do not play it small. The world depends upon your greatness. Sweet love, do not play it small. The world depends upon your greatness. May you be blessed as you go forward. 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 Go forth and be blessed and be a blessing upon the world. Amen, Ashe, and blessed be.